What's up, everyone? Big Rat 310s here again with,
wAJOrton34.
and we're here to give you our Ultimate Fighter Season 13 recap. I don't claim to be some sort of an expert like this guy is on the sport, so excuse me if my comments seem kind of out of left field.
Yeah, I remember when Big Rat, like 2 years ago, used to tell me that TNA pay-per-view would be more entertaining than UFC.
I said that one time.
But now he's been able to broaden his horizons, and really he's the one that got me into this season of The Ultimate Fighter, because like I started off the first 2 episodes, I'm not going to lie, dude, I fell asleep on my couch watching these things. They were so boring. But this past week, Big Guy was telling me this was a pretty damn good season. So I ended up watching like every episode like in 2 days. And it really became like an excellent season towards the latter part of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think the season's gotten a lot of flack. But I think a lot of it is a lot of people haven't seen the whole season. I think people saw the first 3 episodes and just wrote off the season as horrible, which I didn't think was fair. I thought it's been... Your ego.
And the big thing is, like, everybody was saying that this didn't have the coaching dynamic of Rampage and Rashad, where the 2 coaches were at its throat. But I thought it was a good thing, like a different thing, whenever you had 2 coaches that kind of liked each other and were really good guys. Like I really wanted to be taught MMA by Junior Dos Santos. I thought they were both interesting. Yes, maybe they didn't hate each other, but they were also interesting whenever they're on camera, just because they're not bashing each other. But I really thought they had a good dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, it did create for a great atmosphere when they were on TV, and also it gave more of the focus to the fighters, and I think that's because, like we're about to get into, that I pretty much know every fighter. I can tell you who fought who every single week because there was a lot more focus on the actual fighters themselves. And I know a lot of people have been saying, "Oh, that's just bullshit in the house," no one likes that crap. Everyone watches for the coaches. Well, you know what? I got into these guys, and I got a little more emotionally invested than I normally would for these random 2-round exhibition fights. So I thought that was definitely a great dynamic. And I'll say this, Junior Dos Santos actually fought more with his own coach than he did with Brock. And I thought it was something new. Like,
you want to get into that? Basically, it was like his coach, Lou Pauly, kind of like overstepped
his bounds.
Yeah, he was like the head coach. Like he was brought in to be the wrestling coach and basically the interpreter, because JDS speaks bad English pretty much.
Yeah.
But he overstepped his bounds. He overpushed them. He talked too much trash to the fighters, and JDS just like had it.
And he gave him a lot of chances. I mean, like several times throughout the season, he told him, "Hey, you have to calm down. Hey, you have to calm down." He said it several times, and finally JDS said, "You know what? I think it's best if you just go home."
Absolutely, and I wonder like how awkward it's going to be whenever he goes home and he's going to train and he's like, "Dude, I totally just kicked you off the Ultimate Fighter as a head coach." Like how I'm guessing I'm not training anymore, but that's just like a weird dynamic when he goes home to Lou.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah. So I thought that was a very interesting storyline that kind of built itself over the whole season. All right, now you want to like get into like week by week the fighters for each week and get into the fighters a little more?
Yeah, I mean, I think like whenever we were starting the season, the 2 guys that were hyped as like the 2 best guys in the season were Len Bentley and Shamar Bailey, and clearly, I think that also speaks to the depth of talent. A lot of people are saying that this season doesn't have that much talent, but honestly, I think Len Bentley and Shamar Bailey are 2 good fighters, and they aren't even on the finale this weekend.
That is true.
I think there's a lot of talent on the season, a lot more than last season at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Shamar versus Norden, that really was a boring fight, and that was a terrible fight to start the season.
That was a horrible start. That's what turned a lot of people off, really, to the whole season in general. And I hated that fight, and I haven't been a big Norden. I think of everyone really, Norden and maybe Mick Bowman. Those 2 like showed literally the lowest amount of impression the whole season.
Oh, they were terrible.
Like legit Norden, like I don't want to say too many bad things about Norton's actual fighting skill. I'm sorry, as a presence on the screen, by far the worst. And I don't know. I wasn't that into him, and it was kind of very evident going into that fight who was going to win, pretty dominantly too.
And I tell you what, the biggest story I thought of the first episode was the fact that Miles Jury, a heavy favorite going into the season, got injured. So bottom line is this guy was like expected to win, but during the tryouts he got hurt. And bottom line is this guy probably could have gone and won the show, but instead he got kicked out of the show because he got hurt, which is a travesty, but hopefully we'll see him in the UFC. But he got replaced by a really good character in Chuck O'Neal.
Oh, Chuck O'Neal was very big for the whole season. Chuck O'Neal's Chuck O'Neal was probably the main character, I would say. Maybe not that far, but he was one of the guys who really came up, who really probably got a lot more exposure through this TV show, and really a lot of people when they remember the season, those who actually watched every episode, one of the names they'll remember the most is Chuck O'Neal.
Yeah, because not to jump, but him and Charlie had a really good dynamic in the last episode where he's basically best friends with this guy named Charles Rader. And we can talk about his fight. I mean, Charlie, he fought, I'm trying to remember
Ramsey.
He fought Ramsey, and he just got outclassed. And that was a big disappointment because Charles Rader had a lot of hype going into that fight.
Yes, and the whole episode, I know we're kind of jumping ship here. We're going from episode 1, Shamar and Norton, to episode 4. But anyways, with Ramsey and Charlie, Charlie, throughout the whole episode, Charlie was bragging how he thought this would be an easy fight. Everyone was saying how they thought Ramsey had no chance, how Charlie was the number 2 pick. He was a state wrestler, a state champion wrestler in high school. They thought he was just going to handedly run over him. And really, it was almost the exact opposite. Ramsey very decisively put him down with his great wrestling skills.
And Ramsey's one of the great characters of the season. I mean, he paints his nails. He's a complete goofball. Nobody takes him seriously, yet he beats the shit out of everybody. They
call him Stripper Ramsey.
And you can guess why.
And at the same time, Junior Dos Santos said this was the best guy in this whole camp.
Mm-hmm.
So, but getting back on track for the episode 1, well, we already, Norton and Shamar, like we said, Shamar looked very impressive. And, he decisively beat him. Not much to it.
Completely out-wrestled him.
Then we got a very interesting episode, I thought, with Chris Cope and Javier Torres.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah. You go.
That one was the one where Keon Caldwell actually left the show. Do you remember that guy?
Yes,
he
was,
I do.
The
last pick.
Keon Caldwell, last pick for Junior Dos Santos' team, left because of family issues, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. And he was replaced later by a fighter by the name of Justin Edwards, and he was basically known as Randy Couture, right?
Yeah, and Justin also placed an impact on the season as he had a pretty damn good fight with. We'll get to that though, but Chris Cope. This whole episode also they kind of said how Chris Cope had no chance. They said how Javier was gonna. They thought that Chris Cope was, just like another guy. They didn't think that. I remember when he did win, and he did win, third round, I believe, one of the only fights to go to a third round. He said everyone was absolutely stunned that this guy, and throughout the whole season, he was another guy who played a part in this whole season. This whole season, every time he had a fight, everybody just thought he was gonna get destroyed. I mean, once Ramsey beat Charlie, and Junior Dos Santos was proclaiming Ramsey as his greatest fighter. Obviously, a lot of people start to take him more seriously. But Chris, literally, no one gave him any credit for any of his 3 fights. They thought, boom, he would be decisively get defeated in all 3. And he just kept advancing throughout the season. And he also came off well on TV.
You see, Cope is one of those guys that's really natural to hate.
Yeah.
You just look at his face and you kind of don't like him. And then when he talks and he's so annoying. And he goes throughout the house, right? Just randomly. He throws a Ric Flair, woo, woo. And it's so annoying. Yeah, I didn't do it because it's late. But
I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he's so annoying. But he fought Javier Torres. And I don't know about you, but I was expecting Javier to come out guns blazing, but he was disappointing.
Javier was very disappointing this whole season. He looked very one-dimensional. He didn't look... That fight... I liked that fight. I know a lot of people hated it, but I don't know. I think something about the way that fight was played out because Chris, as shown throughout the whole season, was a very, very good defensive fighter. Every single one of his fights, he was backed up against the cage. But he's very good at blocking the offense, and he's making sure to put the guy down. And yeah, maybe his fights weren't... I'm going to be honest. Maybe his fights weren't that great. Chris Cope's, at least. But the one he had with Shamar, I really didn't like. But basically, his defense pitted against Javier's very limited offense. It just, to me, made for an interesting interaction because they pretty much did nothing for the first 2 rounds. And then Chris Cope, got energetic, and he won the 3rd round. And Javier was very disappointing. Dana himself, in the wild card round, again, we're jumping ahead, said, because Javier was picked for the wild card fight, he said that Javier was very disappointing. And, yeah, I guess people expected a lot more from him.
Mm-hmm. But after that, the next fight was the one that really started the chain reaction of this show becoming a very exceptional Ultimate Fighter season. This was Len Bentley taking on Ryan McGillivray. I pronounced that wrong. First, at the very beginning, Len drops Ryan. Then Ryan gets up and he drops Len. This fight was awesome, hardcore brawl. I thought it should have gone in the 3rd round. What do you think about this fight?
I thought the fight was really something special. Like I said, I thought it was the best fight of the season by far. And it was just tremendous action from both men. for me personally, I think I had Len winning the fight. I had the first fight like a straight up draw, because I like Dana himself. I think Dana said that he gave both fights a draw, like he couldn't pick a winner for either one. And I think I might have actually had Len winning the second round, but I forgot the full story. All I remember was that fight was amazing, and yes, having it end without a third round I thought was premature. I definitely thought that there's no way that Ryan won both rounds. I didn't see that. I thought either Len won or third round. And like I said, the fight was amazing, and this whole fight was also a big part of the season when it comes to Len Bentley's character. We'll get to that. What else did you think of the fight?
Really, I totally echo your sentiments. I scored the first round probably 10-10 Len. I mean 10-10 draw, excuse me. But I could see it going 10-9 Ryan. But I agree that I thought the second round probably went to Len Bentley, but close round. And really, like you said, really like this starts in the next episode. Len is already complaining and bragging about how he fought his heart out, so he's a lock in the wild card, and that's just something that kind of got a bit annoying.
That was definitely, yes, it definitely bothered me. This was another one of the main storylines of the season. That Len, for those who don't know, they have 7 fights with 14 fighters, and then they have a wild card where they basically pick 2 guys who get a quote-unquote second chance. And Len was constantly saying how he thought he was going to get that wild card spot, that, and it was a travesty that it didn't go to a third round and all this and that. And you know what? You can kind of sympathize with the man. Like, you can kind of understand where he's coming from, but still, at the same time, it's just like, you know what? We don't need to hear you constantly complain that you didn't get the fight.
Absolutely. And to follow up, the next episode, we already talked about it,
Ramsey
but
and
it was
Charles.
Ramsey's debut, and he tapped out Charlie Rader. He completely outclassed him.
Dana, by the way, did not like Charlie. Like, Dana's comments after that fight were just like, he really put Charlie down as a quitter. Like, really heavily buried the guy.
Never expect him in the UFC.
Yeah, ever, never. Even though Dana is a huge Chuck fan, as we will learn.
Yeah, this was Chuck's debut episode where he was like a star because he was like the nutritionist for Charles, and he came out like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he did. You really felt sympathy. Apparently, these two guys are like best friends, and so Chuck was trying to help Charlie out throughout the season, trying to help Charlie make weight, and Charlie was trying to help out Chuck too later in the season as we'll get along. But yeah, Dana. Like I was just saying, that fight, Charlie just kind of dominated him. Then Charlie took him down easily, choked him out, and then Dana just buried Charlie. So, yeah, but Ramsey definitely also a great character. Next was what? Next was Mick Bowman and Clay Harvison.
Yeah. And that one was basically where Clay picked him apart, standing, but he kind of gassed in the second, but he just pretty much just picked him apart the entire fight.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Mick Bowman is going to go down as one of the very unnoticeable figures of the season. And Clay very decisively picked him apart.
His finger.
Yeah, he broke his finger, his pinky finger. The bone split through the skin, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, Big Red, I don't know when it was, but an important part of the season was also this saying, I'm going to make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
That was second episode.
With
Chris Cope.
But the last episode, he was saying that, he was talking to Brock Lesnar, he said, I'm going to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So all these fighters took dismay to it. He eventually, clarified that he's just talking about where they were and now they are chicken salad. But this past episode, Len, he thinks he's a top dog. He had this great fight. Brock is pissed because this guy lost. And he starts calling him chicken shit, and Len just walks out.
Yeah, Len, this was the episode of the Charlie fight, where Charlie had lost, and Len had lost, and Norden had lost. So Brock was down 1-3. And he was basically saying, like I said, he was ranting on all the fighters, saying they need to put more effort and all this and that. And Len got up and said, I fought my heart out. I don't need to listen to this. And he just left the room. Straight up walked out on Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, you're going to get killed. And then later he says, dude, I'm going to beat up Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar's going to kill him.
Come on, yeah. Len don't stand no chance in taking on Brock. We'll get more with Len. But the Clay fight, that was also another storyline throughout the season. Besides the fact that no one gave Chris Cope a chance, was that a bunch of people on Brock's team, because he spent a lot of time with Junior Dos Santos' team, a bunch of people on Brock's team thought Chris Cope was kind of a double agent, quote unquote.
And somebody wrote in the sand, and this was whenever Tony Ferguson started to become kind of a heel.
Yeah.
Cope questions Ferguson. He thinks Tony did it, and then Tony just outright acts like a complete jerk to Chris.
Yes.
Even though he probably shouldn't have been questioned, he acted classless.
He did overreact, yes. But and the fighters were trying to defend Tony. They were saying like, "Hey, Tony's like the nicest guy in the house. Tony doesn't do it." This will later come into play later in the season. He says like, "Tony doesn't do anything wrong. He minds his own business." And now Chris is coming here accusing him of writing Chris Cope double agent in the sand. Apparently, the guy that did write it was Mick Bowman. He just did it kind of just like stir things up, I believe. And yeah, and Mick fought Charlie. Charlie decisively beat him. Mick fought Clay.
Mm-hmm.
Clay beat him, and Clay broke his finger. He went to the hospital, and that episode, Dana said how Clay couldn't fight, and I thought too. Because I hadn't seen the rest of the season yet, I thought too. Wow, it looks like Clay might actually be taken out of this fight. But in the next episode, we find out that Clay is just fine. You know, he dislocated his finger, but he could still fight.
But the thing is, his bone pierced his skin.
Yeah, it did. It popped straight out of his skin. It was pretty creepy, I'm not gonna lie.
Gross.
Fight 6. Was this a double fight episode?
Yeah, this was. It started off with Tony Ferguson versus Randy Couture.
Justin Edwards. Yeah, Randy, because he looked exactly like Randy Couture.
Uh-huh.
This was, I think this was my second favorite fight of the season.
Yeah, because he had that awesome up kick from his back. That was a sick KO.
It was amazing.
And Edwards was actually winning this fight.
Yeah, he was. Edwards was winning the fight, and then like 4 minutes into the first round or something like that, like Tony's on the ground, Edwards has him at his legs, and Tony just gets the back of his heel and just boom, knocks him straight down to the floor. It was an incredible knockout.
Yeah, Edwards was KO'd. That was like one of the greatest knockouts of the season, right up there with Matt Riddle, killing this guy in the thing. But this was a brutal knockout.
Brutal. And also, this right here is when Brock, like in preparation for this fight, Brock was kind of putting over Tony, kind of saying how Tony was his best guy, and Tony had the tools to win the whole tournament. I thought, you can criticize Brock and his MMA knowledge, like some people have, thinking he wouldn't be that good of a coach, but Brock and Junior both said their best guys were Ramsey and Tony. Guess who's in the finale? Like, they clearly knew something about that, right? What was next? Chuck and Zach?
And yeah, Zach, the first fight of the two, but the first one was basically an awesome fight. Great grappling, great standing, and Zach caught him with a triangle, basically.
And Chuck was furious.
Yeah. He was like, you thought you were impressed right here? Wait until you see me fight again.
Chuck he couldn't believe that he lost to a triangle. And, I remember, Dana, a funny scene I thought was Chuck was pissed and he was running back to the locker room. Dana walks by him and says, "Hey, man, great fight." And he, completely blows him off and just keeps on walking and just, boom, gets his mouth guard and throws it against the wall. And it's just, screaming and all this and that. But throughout the season, throughout episodes 3 through 6, we heard a lot of Len Bentley. A lot of Len Bentley saying, "I deserve to be in a wild card fight." And at the start of this episode, Brock even told Len that Len was going to get the fight if Chuck won, because that would mean that the only two fighters left on Brock's team, Chuck, that didn't win, Len and Norton, of the two, Len would get the wild card spot. But Len got injured.
Mm-hmm. Or supposedly got injured. His knee, his patella or something like that, his knee got dislocated. But his ACL, when at first the scare was he wasn't going to be able to fight, but nonetheless, he still was injured.
Yeah, he was injured. And there was a scare they wouldn't fight, but he was okay. He said he was still able to fight. But, as we will see in, the biggest climactic moment of the season, when Dana's picking the two wildcard fights, after consulting with Brock and Junior, he does not pick Chuck because of the leg injury.
Len.
Yeah, Len. He does not pick Len because of the leg injury.
Which in hindsight makes sense, but the fact that they put Javier Torres over Len was just ridiculous.
They picked Javier, who had lost to Chris Cope in episode 2, and they picked Chuck, who had just lost to Zach Davis.
And this was the reinvention of Chuck O'Neal.
Yes, it was. This started Chuck's spike, but also they didn't originally pick Javier. They actually originally picked Justin.
Justin Edwards.
Yeah, but Justin, he got suspended for 90 days, right?
Yeah, because whenever you get knocked out, you have to be suspended for 90 days because that's just dangerous to your brain.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, yeah, unfortunately, Justin was originally picked, but he unfortunately had to give up his spot. And so they gave it to Javier and they gave it to Chuck. You see, I thought they had to pick a guy from Junior's team and a guy from Brock's team, but I guess not. And yeah,
No.
Javier was very disappointing again, as we'll get
Yeah,
into.
but at least we got to finish with O'Neal just outclassing him and then finally getting a Darce choke, which is great after O'Neal shaved his scruffy beard.
Yep. And O'Neal, besides Ramsey, O'Neal throughout the season was also kind of a jokester. He was also kind of the comedy guy. And then, he just completely had a new attitude once he got the wild card spot. He decisively defeated Javier. He looked great doing it. Dana became a big fan of him still. And yeah, then Chuck moved on to the semis.
And this was whenever Brock Lesnar, like, everybody was criticizing Brock Lesnar on being a coach. This wildcard fight was whenever Brock Lesnar, like, a fire lit under his ass. He became an excellent coach from this point on.
Yep. Also, I will say that the episode of the wildcard fight, Chuck and Javier, Len confronted Brock. Brock basically told him, hey, Dana wants guys who will stay throughout the whole tournament, and with your knee, it's unpredictable. What if you win a fight, you got hurt, and you have to drop out of the semis? We can't risk that. I'm sorry. And, Len basically said, I understand, and I'm just going to move on. And I'm not kidding. He disappeared. We saw him, but we never really heard from him ever again the rest of the season.
Pretty much.
All through the quarterfinals and semifinals, Len was just kind of there. And
he accepted defeat.
Yeah, he accepted defeat. He's like, all right. Which I thought kind of, I thought he should have tried to make more of a presence on television, because especially coming up with a finale, which he's not a part of, which I didn't think was right, but we'll get to that. Let's get on to the quarterfinals?
Yes, actually, before the quarterfinals, my favorite part of one of my favorite parts was actually the football coaches challenge.
Oh, the coaches challenge, yeah. That was
really fun to watch.
Yes, it was, very much so. Especially since Brock, played for the Minnesota Vikings for a period of time, and well, he didn't really play much on the field, but he was still he still made the team before he got cut. And watching, and Junior Dos Santos had never ever played football before in his life.
He looked so funny in pads.
Oh my god! And then the two of them, they just went through a series of drills, like passing drills, running drills, kicking field goals, that stuff. And then you had to get the ball and run across the field back. And Junior Dos Santos beat Brock.
And the gimmick of winning is basically the coach gets $10,000 and he gets to hand out $1,500 to each of his teammates. But what JDS did, because he's such a nice guy, JDS is the nicest guy I've ever seen.
Yep.
He gives $100 to every fighter and every coach except for Brock.
Yes.
Brock lost.
He gave money to both his team, and he also gave it to Brock's team and to Brock's coaches. He made sure everybody got money except Brock, which I thought was hilarious. Then we got the quarterfinal fights, right?
Yes, exactly. And it started off with the build-up with Shamar and Chris not liking each other.
Yes, because Shamar had complained about Chris's whoa throughout the season.
Waking him up every single day.
And so they had a fight, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, to me, I did not like this fight very much. I actually thought, I don't know about you, this might have been the weakest fight of the season for me.
I thought Shamar actually won this fight, honestly.
Well, yeah, Chris was very Chris is a very great defensive fighter. Shamar kept putting him against the cage, and while they were at the cage, Chris was just constantly blocking a lot of Shamar's attempts. And I think because of that, the coaches saw that, and instead of realizing that Chris didn't do anything offensively and he probably should not have won the fight, they gave it to Chris.
And yeah, I agree in some points, but Shamar made the mental mistake in really getting into hating Chris, so he decided to outstrike Chris. But the bottom line is Chris was the better striker, he had the longer reach, and that was a big problem for Shamar early in the fight.
Yep. And I liked Shamar, but I didn't think he was that bad. However, when you look in retrospect, in my opinion, the two worst fights of the season, this one and the one in the first episode, were both Shamar's fights, which I don't want to shine that as a negative on Shamar. I just wanted to point that out. Then what do we got? We got Ramsey and Clay. This was quick.
Very quick. Takedown, rear naked choke. You basically don't even have to see the fight. No. Ramsey looked impressive.
Ramsey looked damn impressive. He took down Clay, legit, what was it, 20 seconds?
Maybe 40, but this was whenever Ramsey was established as a legitimate guy that could really go in the UFC today and be impressive.
Yes, he can. And he was also a very funny character while doing it.
Indeed.
Next we got Chuck and Zach,
versus
the rematch.
Yeah, the rematch. This was brutal.
I felt so bad for Zach.
Yeah, Chuck won.
Yep.
He outworked him, but these guys were having a brawl.
Yes.
And tell him what happened. This was terrible.
Oh my God! So basically, they were having a brawl, and Chuck beat the shit out of him towards the end. And apparently, for Zach, after the fight, he went to the doctor and he found out that both of his retinas were detached from his eyes, and he has to stop fighting forever before he becomes legally, or else he would become legally blind.
Yeah, but good news is I did hear that he was able to fight again. Like they were able to repair it.
Oh, really?
So that's a good thing.
I didn't know that.
That really sucked at first.
Yeah, because at first I was like, I just felt so bad for him. And Chuck, too. Chuck, above anybody else, just felt horrible. Feeling that, like, he ruined this guy's career. And that, he just felt terrible about it. But, like I said, apparently now, according to Daniel's news, Zach is able to fight again. Which he did have a real passion for for fighting. So I kind of, I'm glad to see that he's going to get to do what he likes again. What was the last quarter? Oh, and next we got the quickest fight of the season. Tony versus Ryan.
This was crazy. This was Tony Ferguson. He has power in his punches. He killed Ryan here.
He killed Ryan in like 10 seconds.
Yeah,
strike, knockdown, over.
I think he gave way too many strikes. I think it was strike, boom.
Yeah, like seriously, he pretty decisively defeated this man in legit 10 seconds.
So that set up the semifinals, which should be on the final episode. But before we get to there, this is whenever Tony Ferguson becomes mega heel. Like, okay, I heard that Tony Ferguson was going to become heel, and up to this fight, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's not that bad. Like, he seems like a decent guy. Well, yeah. I was wrong.
What?
Tony Ferguson with his mega heel turn?
Yeah. What about it?
Because going into the heel turn, I thought this guy was a nice guy. Like, I had no idea what these people were talking about.
Then, well, basically, first we should say the fights announced were Chris Cope versus Ramsey, which immediately when that was announced, we all were like, okay, Chris, you've come far enough, but...
Your 5 minutes of fame are over.
Yes, you're done after this. I'm sorry. And then we got Tony versus Chuck, which I was actually really looking forward to. I thought that'd be a really interesting fight. And basically, Tony and Chuck at the start were saying how, they're friends, they don't want to fight each other. They feel bad about it, but hey, business is business.
This became a grudge match fairly quick.
So, okay, here's what happened. So, the fighters all had, like, a little party to celebrate the end. Like, they were all drinking. Ramsey, of course, was being Stripper Ramsey. You should all know what that means. They're all just fucking around. And then Charlie, like, they were all mad drunk. And Charlie, like, gets some water, and he dumps it on Tony's head. And Tony completely flipped out. Tony jumped across the room, tackled him on the couch, hitting his head on the fucking glass table, and just about to get into a fight. They were just like staring at each other, and the fighters came to break it up, and Tony was just like really mad, and then the words got one way or another, and then finally Tony started talking shit about Charlie's son. Earlier in the episode, because Chuck won a bonus for winning his wildcard fight. Is that right?
Yes.
And so he won a bonus for winning his wildcard fight. So the fighters asked him, what are you going to do with your bonus? He said, I'm going to give half of it to Charlie. Because Charlie has a son who, through a divorce, Charlie doesn't get to see the son very much. And, he has to take care of the whole situation. And so Charlie and Chuck are best friends, so he's helping him out. So Tony, after Charlie poured the water on his head and they were both mad drunk, Tony starts talking a lot of shit about Charlie's son. Saying, where's your son at, bro? Where's your son at? All this horrible, horrible stuff. And Charlie was mentally just like absorbing it, not fighting back. He almost did at one point, but again, Tony would not quit. He just kept saying it over and over and over and over and over again. And then, he immediately became the most hated man on the show.
Yeah, not one person in this house respected him after that, because you just don't talk about it, guys, kids. But I will give him credit. He did apologize that he was drunk. But drunk or not, you don't talk about it, guys, kids, whenever it's in that kind of scenario.
And, the fighters all blacklisted Tony. And Chuck, at the end of the episode, was saying how he's going to kick Tony's ass. He's going to ruin Tony's dreams. He's going to make sure Tony does not get to go to the finale.
Pretty much.
And then we got the last episode. Okay, first we had Ramsey and Chris. Chris got lucky. Well, I won't say he got lucky, but like I said, he's a very good defensive fighter, and people thought he didn't stand a chance against Javier. He beat Javier. They thought he didn't stand a chance against Shamar by controversy, but he beat Shamar. But even this fight, I mean, come on, there's no way. His defense is good, but it's not good enough to prevent Ramsey's tremendous wrestling ability.
Yeah, Ramsey's the best wrestler on the show, and he showed that. He took him down. He got a nice TKO victory in the second round.
Yes.
Chris Cope really had some easy matchups, except for the Shamar one, which I actually thought Bailey won, but he got outclassed.
Yes, exactly. And so we'll see what happens with Chris. I mean, he's on the finale, but we'll get to that. Then we got the fight we were all waiting for, Tony versus Chuck. And Tony just
didn't do it.
Wait, Tony didn't do it?
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Chuck.
Oh.
Chuck did not.
No, he did
Chuck
not.
did not
ruin his dreams. Tony looked like a monster in this fight.
This was, oh my God. Tony Ferguson looked brutal. Like, he killed him.
He destroyed him. Like, there was at one point of the fight where you see Tuck's like entire face, like especially from his lip, the top of his lip, under his nose, just completely blood. And Tony's just like, looks fine.
I think it might have been his eye under his chin. I couldn't tell, but Tony Ferguson killed him. He has elite striking, I think. Not elite. That's too much praise. He has great striking, though. And I'm really looking forward to this fight.
Yeah.
Stripper Ramsey versus Tony.
The best wrestler versus the best striker.
Pretty much. And this is the mega heel going up against the mega babyface. A guy that, I mean, unless you're, like, offended by him stripping, He's your favorite guy in the season.
He is very, very, very likable, yes, and he's also hilarious. So it really is like the ultimate showdown. Like we said about Tony did apologize to the fighters, but Chuck said, "Hey, man, sorry, you can't take that back. Like it is what it is." And after the fight, like Chuck saying there's a little animosity still. Tony, I will say this: although Tony is like portrayed as a heel, after the fight, Tony was saying how he still loves Chuck. He loves Chuck like a brother. He's sorry. He's still sorry for everything that happened, for everything he said. He really feels horrible about it. And he's like feeling sick. He still says that he has no problems with Chuck and he still really likes Chuck. Chuck said there's still a little animosity between himself and Tony, but, hey, whatever. And then Charlie said, I hate that guy so much. I hate Tony so much. He's in the spot that I want to be in. God, they tried their best to make Tony like really look like a horrible person here. And now we have the finale with Tony versus Ramsey. And prediction. Wait, what?
I'm sorry, my thing, but yeah, Tony versus Ramsey. And who do you got in this fight?
I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot. I mean, because Ramsey, all I've really seen from Ramsey is his great wrestling ability. Because, like I said, he beat Clay like in 10 seconds. He beat Charlie very decisively. I haven't really seen a lot, but I know it's Tony, as we saw in the Justin fight, Tony can be pretty good on the ground. Like I do think that Tony is a more versatile fighter than Ramsey is. But it really all just comes down to whether or not Ramsey can get him down. Because as we saw with Clay and with Charlie, once Ramsey gets you down, you're done. Like, you're done. He tapped him out instantly. So I don't know. I'm gonna say Tony.
I'm going to take Ramsey in this fight. I could see him shooting in for a takedown and getting knocked out, but if he's probably going to want to pressure, and we haven't really seen Tony get pressure aside from maybe the Chuck fight, but Ramsey's going to pressure Tony in a different way than Chuck is. He's going to grapple with him, and he's probably going to take him down. Now, it's up to Tony if he's able to get back up, but I could see Ramsey getting a second-round sub, but I wouldn't be surprised if Tony knocks him out in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I could totally see that, too. I could totally see Ramsey constantly trying to go for that takedown, and then Tony just, bam, lays him out. It could happen. Now, what I want to ask you is, what are your thoughts on Len Bentley not being on the card?
Yes, yeah. What I'm gonna, I mean, what fight? I'm gonna answer my own question first. But what fight would you have liked to see added to this card? I think you'd have to put Len Bentley in one of those fights. I think you need to give him a second chance. And the guy that I would probably put him against is Charles Rader. I know Charles was not impressive on the season, but he also seemed like he had some kind of potential. Yeah. And I kind of want to see him in a UFC setting.
If they would have known if Zach Davis will be able to fight again by this point, if they could have, I would have liked to have seen him versus Zach. Because Zach was pretty impressive on the ground in his first fight against Chuck. Not so much the second. And I don't know, I thought it would have just been an interesting mix between the two. And of all the fighters lost in the first round, obviously Len probably kind of questionable there. I mean, most of the fights, semifinals and quarterfinals are different. But in the first round, Aside from the Len fight, I don't think there was really any questionable call. I think everybody won and they were supposed to win. But I definitely thought Len. That's why I'm not too big on putting Charlie on the show because he did lose in the first round pretty decisively. However, I would have probably given him another chance because Brock was really high on him at the start of the season. But yeah, I would have liked to see Len versus Zach if they could have done. And so in closing, what would you overall thoughts on the Ultimate Fighter season?
I really praise it, but compared to other seasons, it wasn't, the Ultimate Fighter 1, Rashad versus Rampage, but still was good. So as a grade, I'll probably give it a B minus, which isn't half bad, because last season I'd give like a C
I'm
minus.
the Josh Koscheck season.
I mean, okay, I'll give it a C plus because of the coaches, but everything else about it sucked.
Really?
Yeah, because the fighters sucked on that season. But this one's a good season, I thought.
Me personally, I'm a tournament mark in anything, not just in wrestling or MMA, but in anything. I'm a big tournament setup mark. So the Ultimate Fighter is a show that I would always really like, no matter what, because I love, I don't know, something about the advancement of people further on into the rounds and me rooting people on and stories told throughout the tournament. So I always like a show like this. This show highly entertained me throughout the season. I was never bored. I was always looking forward to it. So I'm not going to give it an A, but I would give it a solid B. Not a B minus. Really enjoyable. Yes, I outshined you there.
Well, we'll see, because, we're going to, hopefully, you'll watch some of the other seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, and maybe, you never know, your grade might change.
Never know. All right, so let's, besides Ramsey and Tony, most impressive and least impressive fighter of the season. Go.
Least impressive, I'm going to kick out Keon. I agree with you, Norton. He just got dominated by Shamar. But yeah, I'm going to say Norton. We're probably never going to see him in any prominent MMA organization. Now that I said that, he's probably going to be champion, but whatever. And most impressive, that's not them. We're really on Chuck's high horse right now. I think me and you both like him a lot.
I do.
So I'm going to go with him. But realistically, I don't know how is he going to do against welterweights, but he's a good character, I think.
Yeah. Dana also, some people are saying how, the loser of the Chuck O'Neal Chris Cope fight is probably going to get cut from the UFC. But Dana really, really likes Chuck, and he's not that impressed with Cope. So, but I do think if Chuck wins, that we'll see what happens basically when it comes. Cause I think Chuck can still lose and may possibly still someday get a job in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
All right, so most impressive for me, besides Ramsey and Tony, I would also give it to Chuck. Least impressive, I could just give it to Norton, but at the same time, I know Charlie's really good, but that's too harsh to say Charlie was less impressive than Norton. I'm gonna say Mick Bowman actually.
Poor Mick Bowman.
What?
I said poor Mick Bowman.
Yeah, that guy's daughter's really, really young, and he writes poems to his daughter, so I feel really bad about it, but I'm sorry. So you think the show is gonna be a damn good show?
I think top to bottom, some of the main card fights kind of underwhelm me. It's a lot of injury-ridden show, but I think it still should be a good show, and everybody that's thinking about checking it out, I recommend you check it out this Saturday on Spike. On
Spike at 9 p.m. We just gave it just as much promotion as UFC did. Bam!
There you go.
June 4th, 9 p.m. on Spike. So, I guess that's it from here. I'm Big Red 310.
I'm wAJOrton34.
And that was our Ultimate Fighter recap. See ya.